I'm still trying to log on here since. Then I lost it. I pushed the wrong button. There, so. Second to pull back up. Oh, awesome. Just in the new title. All right, we'll go ahead and call the May 6, 2021 Southeast Polk School Board meeting to order. Can I get roll call?
Handy,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Nave,
Here.
Slings,
Here.
Crowell,
Here.
Powell.
Here. Looks like we have a quorum. The agenda adoption, Dr. Lipnick, I understand there are some changes.
There are two changes. Item 2A, the math curriculum adoption, will need to move to the 5:20 meeting. We did not receive all the quotes.
Okay,
And then item 3F, we need to omit, it's just a duplicate of G.
okay.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. I have a second. Second. Thank you. Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. All right, 1C, District Vision and Mission. Do I have a volunteer?
I'll volunteer.
Thank you.
Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live. Success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, now's the time for public comments. If there's anybody that would like to address the board on any topic, whether on the agenda or not, this is the time to do so. Just go ahead and type in and we'll try to get your, acknowledge your typing. We do have two that have sent in, and I'll go ahead and read those. And while we're reading those,
There are three total, Mr. Handy.
yeah.
There are three total comments that you have.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Yep, you've got them numbered even. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and read these. If anybody else types in, let me know. The first one, and apologize for this name if I get it wrong. Renan Waskuk of 210 4th Street Northwest. It doesn't say what town. I'm assuming Altoona. It simply says we need to get these masks off our kids. We as a family never wear them. It's been over a year. It's not doing any good. Second one is Joanna Robinson, 4570 Southeast 104th Street. I'm guessing that's Runnels or Mitchellville. Does anybody know for sure? It sounds like probably one of those, but as a concerned parent and on behalf of many members of Southeast Polk Community School District, I'm writing you to urge you to bring the Southeast Polk Community Schools District's face mask requirement to discussion during the May 6th, 2021 school board public comments. We are requesting the face mask requirement be rescinded effective immediately for the remaining of the 2020-2021 school year for all indoor and outdoor classes, events, and or activities, and masks be optional for those individuals who desire to continue wearing them. Thank you for your time and consideration. Third one that we received is from Connie Wright, and it, no address, but in Altoona, Iowa. I would like to know a time frame as to when Southeast Polk will move forward without requiring children to have a mask on their face. When will the school district allow children in the elementary school age, especially, to socialize with friends My 6-year-old granddaughter is in kindergarten at Centennial Elementary, and at lunch, they are not even allowed to socialize with their peers. They are literally sat in front of the television show at their desk while they eat lunch. I want somebody to explain to me how this is healthy. How is that promoting the detrimental social skills that these children need? This is taking such a toll on their mental, social, and emotional well-being. Suicide rates are in the rise. Health issues due to mask wearing are happening on a daily. Everyone says to follow the science, yet when it's proven over and over again the damages that these masks are doing to our children, then suddenly science no longer matters. This has turned into a political circus. Does anyone even remember why we were to wear the mask in the first place? If you were to answer was to prevent the spread of COVID, then you're wrong. Perhaps you should revisit the reasoning. My 16-year-old grandson who attends Southeast Polk High School sits with a small group of friends at lunch. There are 4 of them. However, they are constantly harassed and told they cannot sit forward to a table even though the tables are plenty big enough. The other day, my grandson was told that he didn't care about all the other people that have died. So now we have a high school staff that are shaming our children because they want to be friends. When my grandson informed a particular staff member that 0.23% of the world's population have died of COVID, and he didn't feel that his whole life should be put on hold, he was told that he could just eat lunch in the principal's office for the remainder of the school year. Excuse me, but I don't think so. Now I will add that as of today, my grandson has continued to eat lunch in the lunchroom with his friends, but this only took place 2 days ago. So I guess we will see if the harassment of the students continue. My granddaughter is on a baseball team, and after her first practice, she said, "Nana, did you see that we got to play with each other without masks? Wasn't that great?" I have to say that broke my heart, that these children have been made to endure such cruelty and simply being able to have a baseball practice without a mask. This means so much. I see the damage this is doing and the stress it's causing these children. Sometimes being at school is only a time a child can be with friends and peers. My granddaughter is a social butterfly that is being forced into a cocoon. She worries that if she doesn't keep her nose and mouth covered, she will lose her star for the day. She is 6. This should not be something she should worry about and stressing over. I have 2 other grandchildren who attend different school districts where masks are an option. They don't wear masks and they have not had any rise in COVID cases. Private schools do not wear them. I believe at very least the district should allow this to be an option, not a mandate, especially at recess. Let these children breathe fresh air. They need it. I could go on and on about the research, personal experiences, and the experiences of others, but the bottom line is we are ready for this madness to end. Enough is enough. Let children be children. Thank you for your time and consideration. Mr. Bacom, are there any other ones that have come in?
There are no other comments.
All right, thank you. All right, being there are no other comments, we will move on to 1E, consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Any comments or questions for staff? All right, hearing none. Karen?
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
No.
Slings,
Yes.
Krell,
Yes.
Powell,
No.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Okay. On to old and new business. We will be skipping A and moving to B, approval of architect for softball field improvements.
Motion to approve approval of architect for softball field improvements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for admin on this? Okay, seeing none. Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Krell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
All right, 2C, fiscal year 2022 salaries and wages for administrators and other professional staff.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for the administration?
This is in one I brought up last time where I think matching your administrative packages to our staff just kind of further drives that divide between wages as far as that goes. We're actually widening that gap. I think we need to concentrate maybe more on maybe pulling that gap together a little bit. Which is why I thought we might go a little bit more conservative on this one. So I guess the gap would be like further magnified by the whole, like when you look at the total benefit package. So, and that's why I was asking as far as like the free family insurance and everything. That's, I know in my job, I think when I go from single to family, it's like almost $2,000 more than I would pay per month. So far as anywhere close to that, that's like an extra $24,000. I mean, just kind of, it drives that divide this wider and wider. And that's, I just worry about us getting a little bit alienated as far as our staff when we keep pushing those further and further apart. So it's, you know, obviously 2% with a $140,000 wage is different than 2% with a $60,000 wage or an $80,000 wage. So that's kind of what I worry about when we just kind of match percentages all the time, as far as just creating a bigger gap all the time. So, I mean, obviously we'd love to give a raise that would even keep up with cost of living right now, which I don't think 2%, I don't think 3%.
No, it doesn't.
But we're not in the financial position to do that, especially when we've got a contract out there with our teachers that's less than, I mean, it's 2% as far as that goes, isn't it? So that's why I worry. I mean, optically, you're saying, oh, hey, we're matching up and doing the same thing, but we're really not. So that's why I struggle a little bit with this, just saying, I know I got some feedback last time on it, and I expect some feedback this time. That's my view.
Any other comments?
Well, I mean, I guess while we're discussing this, I guess it's on an action item. I mean, in my world, which is the private sector, which I know this isn't, is full paid family benefits are very rare. Executives do have them, and these, you know, our administrative staff is essentially our executive staff. And when I say executive staff do have, large company executive staffs have them. They are very expensive. I don't know the current value of this, you know, family benefits, but it's got to be 25 grand, I would think. I do know, I've always saw that and thought, good grief, you know, that's a very rich benefit package, but you have to look at the market. I know Des Moines gives every employee, I don't know how they do this, every employee full, you know, even part-timer, it's crazy. I mean, if you want to know, in my law firm, I can think of the number of lawyers whose wives, spouses have worked for Des Moines schools. You know, I didn't have the benefit of that. I paid full paid family coverage. I could buy a house. I did the math one time at what, you know, I could buy like 3 times the house that I live on based on what I've spent and what I've got, you know, on the insurance, which is why Blue Cross Blue Shield employees do so well, I guess. But all that's a long way of saying, I know I've always had, I'd sit there and I think, my gosh, that is a rich benefit package, but it's the market. I want the best people we can get. I want to be able to compete for the talent and retain the talent. I do. I know they all work hard. Everybody stem to stern in this organization does. You know, I think it's something we always have to look at. Your point's well taken. I get numbers. I mean, 2% of one is another. And then plus, as I understand it, the 2% that goes into the teacher's package is part of the increase in insurance cost is covered by that. So
That's the same for all.
right. So that's the same for the management staff too. Okay. So that part at least is equal, but I do get the, you know, numbers, you know, 2% of a larger number is more than, but I think everybody's worked so hard this year and dealt with so much. But I do think it is something you hear a lot in the community. I get a lot of comments about it. And I'm like, hey, look, I want the best. We've got to compete. And I know around, I guess I haven't done any look lately, but I think pretty much every school administrator is getting full pay benefits. And I don't know benefit increase. My guess is, it's like we said, 2% is probably not covering cost of living increase. So I want to try to be competitive. I think our people work hard and we're doing,
I wish it could be more
on the pay
on
increase.
the pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think maybe this is something that we haven't voted on this yet, but I think obviously we always have the difficulties of being in negotiation in the middle of a contract when these come up, because sometimes, we've been in, I think we were in an extended contract with certified and classified. So it does make it difficult to do that. And again, I recognize what you're saying too. I mean, that 2% is different. But some of these things were in place, obviously, way before any member on this board was here. So, when you start talking about taking away benefits too, it's kind of tough, because then you're talking pay cuts. And so really, I mean, when you talk about, because I've been in Tom's questioning before when I first got on the board, is why doesn't everybody pay some of their health insurance? But you take that away, you have to figure out, well, how are you gonna give it back to them? Because you start taking that benefit again, like I said, now your pay cut, and you don't want to do that, because that's not showing that you care about your employees. So this is something that obviously I think maybe Chad, myself and Dirk can talk about and figure out what we can do. We've got time before the union negotiations start. So I think this is a good time for a conversation to see what we can do. And because we do want to show our appreciation. And I even told Dirk this, you cannot convince me that you show somebody money in their pocket, that's a great appreciation or a benefit of some sort. You can tell them thank you all day long, but you give them $10 and they're gonna appreciate you even more. So
You got to do both for sure.
yeah. So point well taken. Any other?
I wonder if the point of this is not necessarily to pull the reins on one group, but to try and accelerate the other. So instead of trying to pull back on the benefits that we have for one group, why aren't we trying to figure out a way to cost effectively increase or improve the benefits of the other?
Well, obviously insurance costs are.
Oh, I know.
Because,
I know.
I think Dirk and company would love to give everybody free health insurance, but then, like I said, a lot of this stuff started before, any member of this board was on, and but we do have control of what we do in the future. So I guess if the board is willing to have a conversation at a later time on this, we can definitely sit down and discuss that. So.
I would like to see if any change were to be made and, at any time, that it would be, I don't think you can, I do labor negotiations. I don't think you can do, I don't want to play. I've had so many business, you're trying to play, I don't roll that way. You can't play takeaway unless, your back's against the wall, which we're not in that situation. I mean, we always have to be mindful of the money, but, and it's not a situation like a private company where we're going to go broke in reality, but as long as there's taxing authority to support it. But if we got to a point where we think we need to do something different with some employee group or something, I would hope what we would do is prospectively, but boy, you're going to get a real feel quick about the market, because people will vote with their feet, and you'll see what kind of quality goes, out the door and what comes back in, it's, so I think you got to be very careful about it. Not saying you can't consider it, but be mindful and careful about any changes like that.
Well, what you were talking about earlier is that benefit that Des Moines has, where that full benefits. I had a friend of mine who was a teacher who only put up with teaching in Des Moines.
Yeah, and I get it. You'd have to, frankly, I'm going to get in trouble. You'd have to do something to work in
Well,
that.
no, I'm an alumnus of Des Moines, so I'll take that heat. But like he solely worked there because he had
Yeah.
a child with a health condition, and
Yeah.
that's the only reason he stayed there.
Yeah.
So
I guess I'll pile on too. I mean, I think that concern about a widening gap is probably the biggest one that I have, and looking at the numbers, obviously, I don't think there's anyone here that would say that they don't deserve this 2% or even more.
Correct.
If we can afford it. But to Adam's point, if there's a way that we can raise everybody else up a little bit, or maybe even look at this differently versus a percentage in the future. Maybe there's a way to do it more of a dollar value increase. So it's not 2% on 100,000+ versus 2% on 50,000. Try to keep them more in line. I mean, you always throw out the private sector. I mean, it's rampant in the private sector, what an executive gets paid relative to what the employees get paid. And it's not quite as bad in public schools in the numbers I've seen, but there still is a gap, and there is that concern of it widening. So I think we want to make sure we're taking care of everybody.
I know we're us, and it doesn't necessarily matter, but I did do an informal, just verbal poll with our neighbors. And what came back was 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and 4. And I couldn't have made that up if I wanted to, but those are our neighbors, our peers for this group.
And that's important to know because that's the market we have to live in. I mean, generally,
Mhm.
so that's helpful to know.
All right, any other questions or comments on this? All right. Oh, anything else?
Oh, no. It's just-
Oh, okay.
I just know, I was telling him I just see it because like when we do our open enrollment and all that kind of stuff, we see the dollars and it's mind blowing. And then you take it and start extrapolating it out. It's like, 47 employees, if it was an average of 2,000, it's $94,000 a month. So it's a $1.1 million a year that we're spending, you know what I mean? Just for that on free
Insurance.
insurance, on insurance, on
Oh,
insurance premiums.
yeah.
And that's before you talk all the giant increases and stuff, which, we're seeing it. I see it at my work. I see it at my employer up there, the group I work with. It's trying to control insurance costs is like one of our number one things we're
For
working
sure.
on right now. And it's just crazy. I know it's something that's been done and it's just, you have to kind of mitigate it in other ways if you're going to continue with that benefit, because that benefit takes over. So it's just that one's going to grow faster than anything else that we do. And Adam, there's no way to, you say cost effectively give raises. That's just straight cash.
Well, didn't we
You
get
know what I
hit
mean?
with a
It's
10%
it's hard.
increase? Now I forget, but then Kevin went out looking so we're trying to,
Oh, yeah. And we need to keep
Diet.
trying. Yeah.
dodge those incoming pieces of shrapnel.
Yep. Because premiums are 1. Drug spend is 2. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's something that I don't know how much we do as far as drug spend and trying to mitigate that, but that's huge dollars too. So like I said, I'd love to give everybody, cost of living right now, you probably have to have a 4 or 5% raise anyway. So it's crazy, but
Yeah, it's climbing too.
yeah.
If I could add to the benefits piece of this real quick with your discussion. Regarding benefits, Mr. Fisher, you did say that we did have a 10% raise last year. That is correct. We have a 3% going to next year. But let me commend the group that is part of the insurance committee that includes a representation of both classified union and also our CPO group, our certified group. We work together collaboratively to go through this process. We're transitioning from a new third-party administrator from Walmart to UMR, which is a United Healthcare company. But during that process, one of the things we were very sensitive to was the raise or the increase in the premiums because it does affect everybody's pocketbook. But I commend that group that's in the insurance committee group because we worked together and we got to a point where the benefit increase or the increases to your medical premiums is 3%, which is really low relative to some of our peers. So.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about by your fancy footwork, Kevin, you and your group, I guess. That's so great. That keeps it, it's still going up, but taken from a 10%, you can only take so many of those and getting that to be 3%. That's great.
That's fantastic. So did we not have, I don't know, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. I think we had I don't know, we experienced like a 20% jump. So the fact that there's like a 3% and a 10%, and then 10% is terrible, 3% is fantastic. So.
Well,
I'd
keep
say
in mind,
good
they're
work
gonna,
on
they're
that
gonna
too.
buy our business for the first couple of years.
Right,
They're gonna-
yeah,
they're gonna be in the same
exactly,
boat 3
yeah.
years from now. They're gonna.
First
jack us
one's
up,
free.
And
Yeah,
then we're gonna be switching and we'll be back to.
yeah, I
So-
know.
So we gotta,
Introductory price.
yeah, but no, it's good. Hopefully the
Yeah.
insurance is the quality that we have now and for the employees, because that's big too, because if you switch too much, then the employees, they're the ones that take a hit on that if they don't have, certain doctors don't meet.
Mhm.
But anyway, I think we're kind of maybe pushing off a little bit on the agenda, so if there's nothing else about the 2% increase salaries, we'll go ahead and do a roll call. Everybody good? All right, Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes,
Nave,
No,
All right, moving on to 2D Phase 3 staff plan hiring for 21-22 school year.
Motion to approve.
Have a second.
Seconded.
Was it Mr. Crowe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
yes,
Nave,
yes,
Slings,
Yes.
All right. 2E, set public hearing date for land exchange. This is for Polk Valley Golf Course, and then the Southeast Polk School District. We're going to swap some 6.955 acres. Any questions or comments for administration on this?
Motion to
Your
set the
motion, thank
public
you.
hearing for June 10th to discuss the proposed land exchange with the owners of Toad Valley Golf Course.
second,
Thank you. Any questions?
I'm hoping on this one that we would not incur any legal fees. I'm thinking that should probably be paid for by the other party if we can. I mean, I think since we're kind of doing a favor as far as that goes, being kind to our neighbors, that would be something that we would not have to pay for.
Mr. Dave, that is something I'm talking to the other attorney regarding our attorney fees as we review abstracts and such. Yes,
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin.
you're welcome.
All right, Karen?
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
yes,
Nave,
Yes,
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
All right. 2F, annuity addition.
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
this is on what? I'm off my screen. What?
Annuity addition, item F.
Oh, okay, yep, yeah,
we calling this like a bonus?
It's a one-time addition to the TSA for work to finish this year, and then the summer work that ahead to get ready for next year.
All right, Karen?
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
yes,
Nave,
No,
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Okay, 2G, approved resolution for voluntary annexation. This is land that was just purchased
47.8 acres.
47.8 acres. Yep.
Motion to approve.
This will be in the city of Altoona, just for the record.
Second.
Well, it could be Pleasant Hill.
Yeah.
I just thought Bondurant. I don't think it's really mess with them. Let's bring Bondurant down.
Well, we didn't say, I didn't say where it was at,
Oh,
so.
okay.
this is the new, for the junior high. and-
East of the Samwise Youth Complex in the city of Altoona, 47.8 acres,
Yeah, thank you.
to be clear.
Go ahead and laugh at me. That's okay. Any questions for staff on this?
No.
Hearing none. Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes,
Corral,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. All right, moving right along. Item 3, topics for discussion. We have return to learn.
You bet. I'll be very quick tonight. You have the handout at your desk. If you look on the front page there, you can see our dashboard data. Our numbers are low, similar to last month. We continue to hover between 10 and 20 positive students. Would like that to be lower. Polk County positivity is flirting with going under 5%, which is really good news. Really good news. And our attendance data remains in that 0 to 5% category for students and staff at each of our buildings. So again, that's very positive. Nothing like what we were seeing just a few months ago. You also have a quick look at the last month for both isolation and quarantines for students and staff. And those numbers continue to go in the correct direction. And then finally, our indicator data, easy for me to say, is similar to last month. Again, there was one big positive move, and that's the new cases per 100,000 over 7 days, which is one of those CDC factors. It dropped under 100 for the first time during this school year, since July, actually. So that moves it out of that high column down into the medium column, which is great news. That's a measure of the amount of virus in the community. And so having that move down is a very positive thing. So that's just a quick update on the data and where we are.
and just as a positive on what you've just stated, we got to have a prom for we had a prom. We're having scholarship night next May 12th. And we're gonna have all of the graduates together for their graduation ceremony. So all of that is positive, and that's gonna get us through the end of the school year. And we're gonna have those things in person, and that's the greatest success, thanks to the parents, the students, and all of the staff.
Couldn't agree more. It's like you're reading my notes. The only thing I had beyond that.
The fact it even has to be stated.
Well, I wanted to
It's
say some of those things.
commendable.
On top of that, also the high school academic awards assemblies for each of the different grade levels will also be happening over the next 2 weeks
That's
in
fantastic.
person with families there as well. So good things for kids, good things for families.
So it sounds like what we're doing is working.
Yep.
Stay the
Do
course.
you know, and I'm sure myself, these others are probably getting peppered with the mask thing, but I know that some smaller schools have gone to mask optional. I hope we can get there. It probably wouldn't be this school year, but what do you know of any? I don't know of any other metro schools that have gone mask optional, or any schools our size, or
No,
so.
not that I'm aware of. The sticking point for us continues to be the quarantine rules. Without the masks, we would have, instead of 10 to 20, it would be in the hundreds of kids would have to be quarantined as the rules are set up at this time.
Yeah, the other question I have on this is, I know the board sort of abdicated, its power to the superintendent, which I fully supported and still do. But I would, as a matter of board governance, I think at some point I know it was like tied to the emergency order that we left in the hands of another politician that keeps extending it. And I get it. It extends, so that extends. But I think at some point the board needs to talk about, okay, I really feel like we're getting, I should be knocking on wood, but the vaccine is having its effect. We're kicking this stuff now, getting a net around it. And I would hope that we could get in a position where the board could get back to, and I know you'd probably bring these things to the board anyway, so it's sort of I think it's something as a board we need to be mindful of so that we address and not just leave it into the hands of a politician that may keep extending emergency order for who knows when.
Is there a particular thing you're concerned about?
No,
Just in general?
just in general.
Because I don't think you've actually taken any executive action without.
I don't think
No,
so.
I
Oh, we did
almost
on the front end.
The very first,
Yes.
after the first 2 weeks of school, I made a recommendation. We ended up voting on it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tried to keep everything in here.
Which I was in full support of, and I don't want it to sound like I've got any problem, I just think it's more of a board governance thing that, we get these resolutions from whoever, the school board or the school administrators association, and they're kind of boilerplate. We say, okay, makes sense, let's go. But I think it's something that we need to, to me, there's less and less of an emergency. We don't have our hospitals overflowing with people and, all that.
Yeah.
And people that want vaccinated can get vaccinated, and that's great preventer. And I don't think, to me, the thing was flatten the curve. Well, the curve has been flattened. So I would like to, the more things we can get to more like normal, the better, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Couldn't agree more.
So that's all.
How many days are left in the school year?
Yeah, yeah.
Do whatever you want.
We're almost through the end.
We have 2 days.
We're gonna blink, it'll be over.
Let's just
Well,
get them out of school.
That's just what I'm thinking though, is kind of like what we were pointing at earlier, that we're being successful in having all these events that shows that what we're doing, even if it's inconvenient, is functioning well. And the numbers support that. So I don't know why we change that unless the CDC changes their position in the next 3 weeks. Is that what we've got left? 3 and change?
I'll state it, I've stated it, I put zero faith in the
State it
CDC.
again in June.
Zero
Gary.
faith. I know, does that surprise you guys? But I
State it
mean,
again in June.
I'm with you, Gary.
the Center for Disease Control, how they did on that? Prevention, how did they do on that? And why do we listen to these people and their guidelines to begin with?
We grandstanding.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
don't genuflect at their feet. I'm
Dr.
done.
Lutnick. Oh, go ahead.
There he goes. Wind
Wanna
him
go
up.
on,
I'm done. I'm done.
Western civilization next?
No, stop it.
Okay.
Let's talk about tax law, Gary. Let's see.
Yeah.
Is it, I think I've asked this before. I can't remember if it was here or one of our meetings, but is it still your intention that we'll kind of go off with, once we reach herd immunity, that'll probably be a good guideline or?
Yeah, absolutely. And that pretty much I would go along with the quarantine rules from the Department of Public Health, and all signs look really positive right now that's we're headed in the right direction.
So for those that are listening I think probably next school year is probably gonna look a little bit different. Still probably have some precautions, but yet, we'll see. But for the rest of this school year, masks. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's a still pandemic, so.
And we're almost through the year.
Well, I mean, sitting in this room, how many of us are actually fully vaccinated yet? Here we sit.
I'm
Who is?
fully vaccinated.
You
Oh,
are, aren't
yeah.
you? Yeah.
So
I didn't
6,
hear what
or
he
Tom,
said.
are you or no, or no? Okay, so 7 out of 7, and yet here we sit because it's the responsible thing to do. So.
Well, Patrick's not vaccinated.
I got my second one.
Yes.
Speaking for Patrick, I mean, come on. And I'm sorry, I guess I shouldn't leave you guys in the mix too, but
Very good.
All right, anything else on return to learn? Or RTL? All right, 3B, board recognition.
You bet. May is School Board Recognition Month, designed to celebrate the contribution of board members in Iowa public education. This year's theme is Leading Through Uncharted Waters. Southeast Polk is proud of our school board members for their work during this challenging year that no one could have anticipated. Think of the last 10 minutes of conversation, and did you ever think you'd be talking about that at a board meeting? Our members are elected to the position by the community and their volunteers who care deeply about our children, our communities, and our future. They spend a great deal of time at regular monthly meetings, reviewing board materials, communicating with citizens, taking advantage of board learning opportunities, and attending school functions and activities. Southeast Polk School Board is charged with governing our school district. They set the direction for the district, oversee the budget, develop policies, and make decisions that impact the entire community. And most importantly, they are committed to student achievement. Our board keeps the district moving forward. They serve 7,000 students, over 1,000 employees in 15 buildings, and are responsible for an annual budget of over $120 million. It's a big job for no pay, but our board members serve to meet the needs of our kids and our community. Tonight, we recognize the dedication and hard work of these public education servants. Please join me wherever you are right now by saying thanks to our school board members and recognizing their commitment to our school. Thank you. You have at your place a certificate for your service for this year. There are also hanging basket plants as a small token of appreciation that you can take as you leave after the meeting tonight.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to the fellow board members for doing what you guys do. With the note, obviously each year we have a student council member that sits with us. In this case, Jordan Brown is our school representative, even though she's not here today. We have Patrick Tunks here sitting with us, but we'd still like to recognize you and Jordan and the rest of the student council for the things you guys do for the school as well. It's kind of a chain reaction. I mean, the voices are important, even though you're not an elected member, but we do feel you guys are a part of our board. So we want to say thank you. And we appreciate you guys coming and giving input when you do have input. And sometimes these meetings get pretty long, so. But hopefully we'll get to see Jordan before she graduates and goes on to her other thing. But if you see her before we do, tell her thank you, and thank you for being here.
For your service.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you.
Pat.
Thanks, Patrick.
Patrick, I'd like to echo what our president just said. You and Jordan have both given so much input, which I just think is tremendous, both of you. And I've learned a lot this year from the both of you. And we've always had good representation, but I think through our president's leadership, both Gary and Brett, that we've asked the students more times this year because we didn't know what we were doing with, or not saying not knowing. We had questions about, are we doing the right thing in certain things, especially COVID? And it was always good to get a student's perspective. So I hope Jordan hears this somehow too, but thank you to the both of you for speaking up and giving us your opinions. Thank you.
All right, moving right along. High school schedules, Mr. Pettit.
Thank you, Mr. Handy. I'm actually gonna go off script a little bit. I too want to thank Patrick and Jordan and the whole student council for their service. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we've got great student leadership, but we have two faculty members that co-sponsor the student council, Marcy Cassie and Shannon Stussy. And this week they have honored our teachers and honored our whole staff with different things every day. Gonna have a school supplies giveaway yesterday morning. Today they, I know we're talking about not having masks, but they gave every one of our employees a new Southeast Polk mask. We had food service employees today that had new aprons that they were donning, and they were really excited about it. So I just appreciate how you guys are always focused on giving back, celebrating the staff. So thank you, thank Jordan, thank Marcy and Shannon and the rest of the student council. So with that, I will transition into my presentation. This is the schedule for the 21-22 school year. You have seen this, it's been in your hands for about a week, but I will highlight specific portions of the presentation. To begin, I'm going to start with kind of a view into the past, kind of a pre-COVID. This is what the high school schedule looked like. some specific characteristics. We were on an 8-period day, met all 8 periods every single day. We rotated on an A-B schedule for like PE classes and things along those lines. The two kind of highlights from this page of the presentation is that we did not have any MTSS opportunities during the school day. That's multi-tiered systems of supports or an intervention period. We had other supports, but nothing like what we're doing now with MTSS. And we had 210 weekly instructional minutes per class. So that was kind of the pre-COVID characteristics of our schedule. This year, with COVID, we're still on an 8-period schedule. But we only meet 4 classes each day. So we are on an even day and an odd day schedule. Again, still 8 periods, but they're going evens and odds. We've bounced back and forth between hybrid 2, hybrid 1, remote, hybrid 2, and now hybrid 1. So just the different phases of return learning had some slight adjustments. But for the most part, our classes are now, our block scheduled is approximately 80 minutes each. We do meet with all 8 classes on Wednesdays for 23 minutes. Due to COVID and the need to socially distance students when they take their masks off, we've really expanded the lunch period. We created an MTSS system, which has had some benefits. But really the takeaway here is we have 183 weekly minutes per class and 200 weekly minutes of MTSS. So when we talked last, I don't remember if it was in January or somewhere right around the beginning of the semester, we talked about the schedule. We talked about what we want to do as we build into the future. We did some surveying with our students and with our staff. So these are some of the responses from those surveys. I think we had really good participation. 114 staff members completed the survey. 685 students completed the survey. So those are some specific data points, but really the themes that I took away was the majority of our students and staff prefer the longer blocks of time per class versus the 40 to 50 minute 8-period day sessions. So 76% of the staff and 64% of the students.
Mr. Pettit, how many staff members do you have?
About 140 certified staff members.
Okay, thank you.
Another theme is both groups see value in the MTSS. So there were different surveys, questions on each one. Our students do appreciate the open campus lunch, which has been one of our, results of the COVID strategy.
How successful has that been with attendance issues?
It's been a challenge.
Okay.
It's been a challenge. It's been a necessity, but I think it has created some additional challenges that I'll address with the schedule coming forward. So in putting together the schedule for 21-22, really the characteristics that we're looking for in the future schedule is to primarily be a block schedule. We want to have available MTSS time. Right now, our MTSS time and our advisement time is the exact same time, again, due to the COVID necessities of lunch. 1 day a week, we have advisement. The other 4 days a week, we have MTSS. But in the new schedule, we would like to separate those into 2 different times of the day. We do want to have consistency with our MTSS. Right now, a portion of our students are eating lunch, portions of our staff is eating lunch, and the other portion of our teachers and students are doing MTSS. So it doesn't always line up that when a teacher is available, their student might be eating lunch. So we want to eliminate that and have it be a consistent time where people can be available and students can get the needed supports that they need. A reality is we still need to have some sort of flexibility if there are some COVID-related concerns. So the proposal does have some ability to still be flexible if we need to continue some of the COVID mitigation strategies that we have right now. As always, we want to maximize our instructional minutes. We also want to restructure our black and gold days, what was our every other day classes. We kind of talked about 90-minute, 80-minute study halls are long. And can we do something that's more productive? So We want to have a restructuring of our black gold, instead of being an every other day concept, have a black section of a block period, like the first half of it. And then the last half of that block period would be the gold section. So I'll kind of explain what that would look like. And then we also want to have some incentives for students. You know, we kind of have taken away what used to be the silver card incentive, but we want to have some academic incentives for our students, and it's going to relate to MTSS. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So there's really the next 3 slides all go together. And there's a lot of information on this slide. So if you look at this week's schedule, this first page here, our odd days would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Our even days would be Tuesday, Thursday. I'll progress to the next slide. The second week, our even days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and our odd days are Tuesday, Thursday. So really it's an every other day rotates between even and odd periods. Okay. Right now, we have odd periods on Mondays and Thursdays, even periods on Tuesdays and Fridays, because we meet with all 8 periods on Wednesdays. The new schedule will not have all 8 periods on it on Wednesdays. We won't have 8 23-minute long classes. We'll have longer classes, not like the regular block periods because of the 2-hour late start. So the classes on Wednesdays will be 53 minutes. Okay, I've highlighted in blue where we will have our MTSS time. So the traditional school day starts at 7:50. EB stands for early bird. So there are some early bird PE classes and things like that that usually meet before the traditional school day. But we're going to start off every regular start school day with a 35-minute MTSS period. Okay. The academic incentive associated with that will be based off of students' previous semester's performance. So all freshmen will be required to go to and scheduled into an MTSS section. Sophomores, juniors, and seniors that achieve a 3.0 grade point average or above this spring semester will not be required and scheduled into an MTSS period. So the academic incentive of having a 3.0 grade point average or higher this semester is you get 35 extra minutes to sleep in every morning. And I think we can find all sorts of research out there about the benefits of a later school start. So I think that kind of addresses that. With that said, any student that's not scheduled or required into an MTSS period can always come and get extra help from their teachers. Okay, so the time is available. We're going to require all freshmen to be scheduled into a group, but the sophomores through seniors who have demonstrated that they don't need as much academic support would have some flexibility there. Okay,
I think that's a nice perk
I think so.
and a reason to get a 3.0 or above.
I think so. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a better incentive than what we had previously had, like giving kids an opportunity to opt out of a final
Right.
Yeah.
because of their
Yeah.
grades.
Mhm.
So I think it's more appropriate.
I like this for kids that drive, but kids that have this incentive that are bus riders. What do they do if they don't want to go? If they want to take advantage of this 30, do they just go to the?
We'll have a supervised area in the building. Of course, they could always get extra help from their teachers,
Right.
but they won't be assigned into a classroom every single day. We'll kind of have, whether it's the commons, the multipurpose room, we'll have a place for students that aren't required to go to MTSS because they've earned it through their academics, but transportation requires them to be at school, you know, by 7:45 or something like that. We'll have an area for them to go.
Okay.
If you kind of look at that, kind of the numbers right below the bold headings, that's kind of how the black gold periods would be switched or would be divided out. So again, a 90-minute period on a traditional 90-minute block. The first 43 minutes will be the black portion of that period. We'll have a 4-minute passing period. And then the last 43 minutes of that 90-minute period will be the gold portion. So it is a shorter passing period, but the majority of those kids will be going from the commons to the locker rooms or the locker rooms to the commons, a pretty short transition. We'll have other kids that would be going from the commons to maybe a classroom. 9th grade career seminar is an example of that in the first semester. But again, it's not transitioning all throughout the building. you're either going from the middle of the building to one of the, extremities, or just going down to the gym.
So Steve, just so you're right, so that's PE to, I mean, it's not necessarily PE in study hall, but that's kind of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it could be a combination of things. It could be, students could have PE during the black portion in study hall, during the gold portion. They could have PE during the black portion, 9th grade career seminar during the gold portion. They could have, a couple of our other support classes could meet during one portion, which then could have study hall or PE on the other side. So again, they're half block classes. There is the likelihood that there could be students that still have the everyday, all day study hall. So there could be kids that are in 90-minute study hall periods, but that's because they haven't requested additional classes. We do have study hall releases for our upperclassmen. A lot of those get scheduled in such a way so they're at the end of the beginning of the days. But this will drastically reduce the number of kids that have that full day study hall, because the opposite day they have the full day PE period.
So your goal is not to have people sitting around for 80 minutes.
Our goal is to significantly reduce the number of kids that have a full 90-minute period of study hall. This also increases the frequency of PE classes. Right now, we have kids that have PE classes 90 minutes or 80 minutes one day a week, and then the other time that period meets, they're in study hall. So now what we're going to do is they're going to have 2 43-minute sessions as opposed to the 190. So it increases the frequency of PE with the same relative number of minutes, but a 43-minute PE class is probably more appropriate for the general population than a 90-minute only one day a week.
Mr. Pettit, I appreciate all the work you and your staff have done to make this presentation. You've really crossed your T's and dotted your I's. I just have a few questions. I've never hid the fact that I'm not a fan of block scheduling. I think kids need to see their teachers every day. I grew up and started teaching in a 7-period day that later was changed to an 8-period day, which for me, it was very important to see my teacher every day because I needed a lot of help. I think the block schedule during COVID this year has been great because we've had, cuts down your passing period, number of passing periods. So that's great. But like Gary mentioned earlier, we're trying to get back to normal. Vaccinations are happening, and I continue to wear the mask. Your survey is good, but most of your staff, as you pointed out, 114 out of 140 took it, but only 685 students took the survey out of, I know you're well over 2,000. And I really struggle. And you just mentioned a minute ago before I started speaking that you're working to change the study hall problem, which I commend you for. But I really struggle with instruction for 90 minutes. I think in a lot of cases, not all, but a lot of cases, what the kids are really getting is less than an hour. And they spend the rest of the time on guided practice, which is a fancy term for homework, or they're on their phone, or sometimes they can sneak in a nap. I think the lunch hour with an hour and 40 minutes, that's almost 25% of a day that they're in lunch hour or their study hall, and you're trying to fix that. And I'm a huge fan of MTSS. That's wonderful. I wish school districts would have started that a long time ago, because anytime a kid can get tutoring, that helps them. But I also struggle as a former educator when they don't meet every day. If they get a new concept taught to them on a certain day, and then they don't meet the next day. For some kids, it's hard to remember the new concept when they don't meet the next day, when they meet especially if there's a weekend involved. But again, I know some kids can pick that up quickly, but others need to see their teacher every day. I just, I just, your work is amazing. Your slideshow is great. Again, you dotted your i's and crossed your t's, and you figured things out that I didn't think could be figured out. And you're working on not having such long lunch periods, which is fantastic. It just, I guess maybe, I don't know if you call me old school, but I think kids need, especially since we've had such an unusual year this year, and we lost part of last year. A lot of kids need to see their teachers every day, and maybe they can through MTSS, which is good. But I just, I think block scheduling is good for some classes like the arts or, band, music, phys ed, shop classes, things like that, what other classes. And I'm a former special ed teacher, so time, attention spans are short. But what do you do with a kid for that long? It's hard, even with, guided practice, homework time. You started off your slideshow saying before, when you had an 8-period day, you had 210 weekly instructional minutes, which is good. But now with the block schedule, you have 183 minutes per week.
Well, I'm not finished yet.
Okay.
183 is what we have right now. That's not
Okay.
what's in the proposed schedule.
Okay, good.
Yeah, why don't we go
Still
ahead and
presenting.
listen to what the rest of that.
All right, well, other people are making comments, so I thought I could do that. Guess wrong.
Well, I'm hoping he'll answer
Yeah, he probably will.
on some of the questions.
So from an instructional standpoint, I'm moving to this slide. There's a lot of color on this page. Basically, we're going to work with our staff that really consecutive days pair together. So over a 2-week period, there's really 5 sets of 8-period days, if that makes sense. So this first Monday and Tuesday, you would see all of your kids on either Monday, Tuesday. The second set would be the Wednesday, Thursday. That's that kind of tan color. The third set of classes would be the green color, which would be Friday, Monday. Then you would go Tuesday, Wednesday, then Thursday, Friday. So again, every other day would be your opposite set of kids from an even to an odd schedule. There is some inconsistencies when it comes to the number of some of the minutes due to Wednesdays. Like I said, Wednesday class periods are 53 minutes. The other block periods are 90 minutes. So that's a 37-minute difference in classes. The reality is there's not a schedule that's perfect in the world. And, our focus between now and the beginning of next school year and throughout next school year is how do you maximize all the instructional minutes you get, regardless of whether they're the same number of minutes on a Wednesday versus a Thursday. But it's also how to maximize the instruction within the block schedule. We do not want it to be 60 minutes of instruction and 30 minutes of go work by yourself and get your homework done. That's very poor instructional practices on a block schedule. So what our goal is as an administrative team with an instructional coaching team is to develop professional development and support on how do you maximize the instructional strategies to get the best student achievement benefits during those longer periods of times. And I have another slide towards the end that kind of talks a little bit more about this. This next slide, just an example of the lunch periods. So we will not have open campus lunch. Students will eat lunch within either their 5th period class or their 6th period class. Previously to COVID, when we did not have an open campus lunch, we had 5 lunch periods. So we're going to be reverting back to 5 lunch periods. The difference in the new schedule is all 5 of the lunch periods will be contained within 1 class period. Prior to COVID, we had 5 lunch periods split over 2 periods. The scheduling was complicated. It was really hard to balance lunches. We had a lot of kids that kind of got stuck with this middle third lunch. So this is really going to improve just our ability to kind of balance out, especially over the next couple of years, as we still have 9th graders in the building and our building grows when it comes to the number of students, but the size of the cafeteria doesn't. So this will really help with that. You can see that depending on whether or not you have the first lunch or one of the other lunches, the number of minutes is either 80 or 85 minutes. First and fifth months that aren't, or lunches that aren't split, they get that extra 5 minutes of class time because they don't have to have that passing to and from the cafeteria. Okay. So this is the characteristics of the 21-22 schedule. Again, it's an 8-period day split over 4 classes each day. 90-minute block class periods, except for on the Wednesdays, they're 53 minutes. Closed campus lunch. Our black gold courses will meet within block periods as opposed to on every other time that block period meets. Again, primarily PE, study hall, career seminar, some of our special education support classes. Rick, to address one of your concerns, with a lot of our students that have goals in reading and writing, if their English class meets on an odd period day, then their support class for English would meet on the even period day. So they would
Say that again, Steve.
So a lot of our students that have reading and writing goals and IEPs and things along those lines, if their English class would meet on an odd period day, the support class that they get on top of that will schedule into the even period day. So they actually would get to see their co-teacher every day. In our algebra class, that class will still get extra time. So they will get every single day support. They'll have a 90-minute class one day and like a 43-minute class the next. So, we're trying to provide daily interactions to what we've identified as the students that need it the most. The MTSS, I kind of got some bullets down there. Again, that's where our academic incentives are going to be. Students that have a 3.0 or above in the spring will earn the exemption out of required MTSS in the fall. In the fall, students that have a 3.0 grade point average from next fall semester would earn the exemption for the spring of 2022. Again, that's only sophomores through seniors. Freshmen are going to be required to be in MTSS the entire school year. Okay. Now that's not an exemption for the entire semester. If students that were exempted from MTSS because their previous semester grades were great, but they all of a sudden start to struggle, then that exemption can be pulled from students and then they would be scheduled into a required MTSS section. So we're going to be responsive to students' current performance, not just base placement off previous performance. We won't do it every 3 weeks like we've been doing it this semester. It will either be on 6-week or 9-week intervals, or at any given time, as soon as we, like a student assistance team, notices that some student needs additional support. So we're going to be mindful of that. Once you get scheduled into MTSS, though, you're there the remainder of the semester. Okay. Another thing we're going to do with our MTSS is we're going to do the best job we can of intelligently placing students with teachers. It's not just going to be randomized like what happens right now with our advisement. So every single student is going to be placed into an MTSS section with one of their teachers. We have a couple, I think it's 16 of our MTSS sections will have 2 teachers because we have more teachers than we do have rooms. So we have paired 16 teachers together, and we'll make sure that the students that get into those MTS sections are scheduled into both of those 2 teachers' classrooms. Okay. Our students that have IEPs are going to be scheduled into MTS sections with their roster teachers. So they'll have daily interaction with their roster teachers. So again, we're going to do our best to intelligently schedule these students so they're meeting with one of their single teachers every single day. There's also a checkout process. Right now in our MTSS situation, teachers are the only ones that can request students to come and work with them during MTSS. Next year, we're going to implement a process for students to actually request to go out too. So it's going to be a 2-way request system. Teachers can pull students from other MTSS groups to work with them, but students can also request to go work with somebody else. So I think that's going to be an improvement in that time. The bottom line on this slide is 206.5 minutes of average weekly instruction with 140 minutes of MTSS. So if we go back to compare pre-COVID was 210 minutes with no MTSS. The new schedule is 206.5 minutes, with 140 minutes of MTSS.
Mhm.
So we feel like it's pretty equivalent to the number of instructional minutes is what we had before, but we've gained over 2 hours of intentional intervention periods for our students. And coming out of COVID, and if we're thinking about trying to bring kids back up to speed, we absolutely need that extra intervention period.
Is this due to the less? Is this due to less passing periods, and that's why you've got half as many passing periods a day, so you're making up 20 minutes a day or something like that?
That's partially. There's fewer passing periods. Each class period's a little bit longer.
Mhm.
But that's primarily the reason. Is there's just fewer passing periods. So worked with our model teachers to kind of go through this schedule. You know, what are your concerns? What are your thoughts? What are the benefits? This slide contains themes from the feedback I received from our model teachers. We have 26 model teachers in the building and 6 instructional coaches. So the instructional coaches and I and our assistant principals developed the schedule, received feedback from the 26 model teachers, and this is kind of what they saw as the academic benefits of this new schedule. And I'm not going to read every single one of these. You guys have them here in front of you. I will point out a couple of them, but it's a significant change to go from 8 classes a day to 4. Okay. We've had instructional coaches over the last few years shadow students and go from one class to the next, to the next, to the next for 8 classes. It's exhausting. And it's a rat race. It's a lot of transitions, you know, and it's a lot of direct instruction because there's information that needs to be disseminated, and then you leave class and there's not the opportunities to get that extra support. So for one, I think it's a significantly better environment to go from 8 classes to 4. The longer class periods, they're more conducive to class discussions, deeper thinking, more time for problem solving. Labs, you know, if you think about an industrial technology class, by the time you get the equipment out and set things up, you're cleaning up. Also, when talking with our teachers, many times the content for the day, 45 minutes wasn't enough. So you teach a portion of the content in one day, and then you have a pause, and then you come back the second day to finish things up. What our teachers have experienced this year is that they can actually do a better job of containing an entire lesson within one class period, provide interventions, provide checks for understandings, give kids opportunities to collaborate with their peers. And we believe that the learning will retain longer that way than splitting that over 2 periods. You know, the morning MTSS, I mean, I don't know how many times when I was a teacher, you know, Rick, probably when you were a teacher, I would say, come see me in the morning. You know, some student, you know, had problems, come see me tomorrow morning. Well, I'll help you out. Well, that's like 15 minutes. You know, that's like the busiest 15 minutes of the day for a teacher is trying to get ready. So now we actually have a system where the come see me in the morning makes sense. And it's designed for teachers to help students before school. It's also before they go through all their school day. So I just think that system is going to really help. The next to last bullet, we're still going to have during the day supports outside of MTSS. We're still going to have tutoring set up. We're still going to have our after school homework help systems. So the MTSS isn't in place of those extra supports in addition to. Really it's really in place of, like what you said earlier, Mr. Correll, it's in place of some extra transitions and passing periods. Okay. So my last slide, and then I'll take whatever questions you have, is there were lots of different things we considered. This wasn't the only consideration. So in working with the administrative team, working with the instructional coaches, having some conversations with district office cabinet members, you know, we looked at the 8-period day. But I think the concern with the 8-period day is if adding in a necessary MTSS time, that's going to reduce your instructional minutes by a lot. And we felt like the MTSS time is critical. What about keeping that 8-period day on the Wednesday and just having those 8 23-minute classes like we have right now? I think there's been some value in those seeing your kids, you know, every class in one day, but the 23 minutes I don't know how super productive that is. Some teachers really like that check-in. There's other teachers that have been more of it's a help session. It's like an MTSS feel, which kind of feels redundant to the MTSS opportunities in the morning. Again, not all teachers do that. A lot of the teachers do see the value in that once a week, I get to see all 8 of my classes. But we felt like it wasn't high enough of a priority to have 8 periods on Wednesdays. We also looked at, okay, how can you maybe take those Wednesdays and not have 4 classes? How can we maybe just have 3 block classes on the Wednesday, because it's the late start day, and have 5 block classes on the opposite day? That just creates more confusion in the schedule. You know, which Tuesday do I have 4 classes and which Tuesday do I have 5 classes? It'd just be really hard for kids to really stay with. So we considered a lot of things, consulted our staff, consulted our students, got some feedback. Personally, this is what I think is best. You know, I've been in the business quite a while. You know, I've been in the high school for an 8-period day a long time. I taught in an environment that had a modified block where you had a couple block days. You know, sometimes you experience things kind of not by, you know, out of necessity. You know, I think the COVID situation caused us to switch into the block this year. And I think one thing from the beginning we've all tried to set is what can we actually gain from this experience, because we think it's better. And I think the block schedule is better. And that's why we're going to move to the 21-22 schedule as proposed. So with that, does anybody has any questions, comments? Rick, you want to pick up where you're at?
No, I'm fine.
I've got a few questions, Mr. Pettit.
Sure.
On the MTSS, you're talking about you're gonna kind of intelligently schedule that out. I guess I'm thinking about, like, you know, for the students that don't really need that support, and this would be probably freshmen primarily, because sophomore, you know, through senior would have an option if they're doing well enough to not go there. How would you assign that out? Would they just kind of be with kind of a roster teacher then?
And basically what I've done already is I've taken every freshman and I've already assigned them to an MTSS group based off of one of their assigned teachers. And there'll be some flexibility. If it turns out that I assigned a student to their social studies teacher because it just worked out in their schedule to go to the social studies teacher, if they're really struggling in science and would rather be with their science teacher, we'll look and see if we can trade kids in order to keep that balance at the same. We're trying to really put a maximum number of students scheduled into MTSS periods to be 15. So that provides space for other kids to come in that might need some help from some teachers that maybe more sought after during that time. So we'll provide some flexibility. I'm gonna do my best to try to get it right the first time, but I don't know every student's area that they need the most support. We might have some students that are in really challenging classes. They're doing great academically. It's just they're in a really hard class and they want to go get help from that teacher. Well, maybe then we'll do that schedule change so they don't have to actually physically check in somewhere and go get help from the other teacher. I'll just move them there.
And that's where you're saying the students could kind of request, or the teacher can request.
Well, there'll be the daily request opportunity.
Mhm.
You know, a full schedule change where I would move somebody out of their initially placed MTSS class into a different one. That will be something that we'll review. Space will dictate how often we can do that. I would love to be able to have found every student's request and made the magic happen, but it was pretty tough right now just to place them with one of their teachers. But you know, like I said, if we can learn along the way and be smarter and be better, then that's what we want to do.
So they'll have a kind of primary instructor that they'll go to for MTSS, and then maybe move around as needed.
Yes, and our system hopefully will be such a way that it will be digital when it comes to the response or the request system. So if a student was scheduled into my MTSS period, but they were going to get help from you, they would fill out the form ahead of time and wouldn't have to show up to me to get permission to go see you. You would know they're coming, and there would be some communication if the student didn't show up. So we're building those procedures right now. I've actually got a meeting tomorrow morning with 2 of our model teachers, one of our instructional coaches, to try to expand our current kind of teacher pull-in request system to also be a student request system as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I appreciate about this schedule, obviously there's a lot of thought and a lot of input that you got in coming up with it. It's a complicated puzzle. And like you pointed out, there isn't a perfect schedule, but it sounds like what we did is we took what we learned from this year. We had to adapt because of COVID. And we took what we learned to try to take the best from that. And then also look back at where we were. And we're not just trying to revert back to the old system, but trying to come up with a new system that kind of does the best of both. And I assume switching to this, we'll learn a lot and we may adjust it again next year to keep tweaking it and fine tuning it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get my crystal ball out. You know, we have 2 more years, beginning of next year, where we have a 9th through 12th grade high school. I would like to have this schedule stay as much intact as we can for 2 years to really collect data to see if it's, you know, just a blip or if it, you know, the themes that we collect really are consistent over those 2 years. And then when we transition to a 10th through 12th grade high school, then potentially make some adjustments and some tweaks.
Thank you.
I love this. I love the schedule first and foremost, because in my mind, it actually mirrors what you're going to see at the next level for college for your juniors and seniors, way more than the 8-period cram session that is a normal day or the historic day. And as a parent, I absolutely adore this because I have a freshman and I have a freshman who perennially had tons of missing assignments because homework was just not something that a kid with ADD does. I think we've seen, I can count on a single hand how many missing assignments that kid has had this year because they have that extra support time. They have that extra time to get it in. And his grades reflect that. They're better than they've ever been. Sorry, that's a proud parent moment there. I love this. I think it functions. I think it works well. I understand the hurdles that exist with the open campus. I kind of like the open campus for some of our older students, but I understand the hurdles that come in there. So I wish there was a way we could work around that, but I understand that may be a necessary thing to dispense with. For those of us, for me, who didn't go to Southeast Polk, what is advisement? Is that just homeroom with a different name or?
Traditionally, I would say yes.
Okay.
It's really our college and career readiness program in
Okay.
addition to our social emotional support program. So it
Okay.
kind of blends both of those together. We do our mentor and violence prevention program within that too. So it's really it's an everything program that really hopefully drives to, you know, the vision of our district to help prepare kids to be successful college, career, and civic life. And that's really the intent of advisement.
I hadn't asked that question before and I was looking and I was like, if it's actually just homeroom, there was definitely value in homeroom. But other than the extra 15 minutes of nap you got when you got there. But if that's what it is, there's definitely value in that.
You know, one thing I want to add to what you said is I would agree that this is more replicable of a college or university type of experience. You know, when you go to, you know, someplace after high school, you probably don't have 8 classes in a given day, and they probably don't all meet every single day.
No.
You know, 4 classes that meet 2 to 3 times a week might be about what you have. I think the MTSS might kind of parallel office hours. So there's some consistencies there. You know, we really want students to learn how to advocate for themselves and not be just a teacher says you have to go get more help. So those are some kind of accountability things that we're going to try to push. But again, not all of our students are going to go on to, you know, a college or a university. So we need to have a schedule that really allows for the time to do a lot of those hands-on learning that, you know, we value for kids that are going to go directly into the trades and into careers. So I think this schedule, it addresses, you know, the comprehensive high school that we have in the best way a schedule can.
I can't imagine, you know, all the ins and outs. And I think this is like kind of like a schedule, you know, that you're going to get 10 people in a room and 10 different opinions. There's not, it's like you said, there's not the perfect plan. And I like the idea that, hey, that we're going to do this and we need to adjust, we'll adjust and improve. I mean, that's what continuous improvement's all about. At first, when I read it, I was very confused. I've always been, you know, A and B and black and gold. And that's like, how do these kids know what's what? I will say on this slide on 8 that you put together, that's very helpful, at least to me, You know, okay, we got this band Monday and Tuesday, they're kind of together, Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday and Monday, yeah, they're split by weekend, but instead of viewing it as a split, view them as together. That helps me follow the chain of it. And and kids are much better adapting to this stuff as far as, what day, where, what. I love, like Rick, I love the MTS across the board. I've been harping about what are we going to do to help these kids after this, this challenging year and a half. And this is something that directly affects that. I like the preparation in case we still have to be doing all these extraordinary things as far as the lunch, maybe planning for it will mean we don't have to do it. We're doing it for other reasons, like what you're talking about. So I like that part of it. I appreciate the thought. The one thing that I saw, and there, again, there's probably no way around this. There's only so many ways you can click the Rubik's Cube, but in the lunches, there's like a 16-minute class, then you go to lunch, and then you have 64 minutes. And then, there's another day where it's 64 minutes on the front end, and then you go to lunch, then you got 16 minutes on the back. And I guess there's probably no way to deal with that 16 minutes. It's just what.
Yeah, with 26-minute lunches, in order to get passing periods into
Right.
those, with, again, our black courses meeting the beginning and the gold at the end, those needed to be the same number of minutes. So the third lunch will be where we would place any of our black and gold classes, so that each side of that lunch would have 40 minutes.
Right.
Again, your first and last lunch, that's one consistent chunk of time. If you've got the second or the fourth lunch, then that's when you have it broken down into either a 16-minute session lunch and then a 64-minute session, or the flip of that, the 64-minute session, then lunch, then the 16. So again, a 16-minute session is not great.
No, that's,
The only way to make that longer is to make the lunch period, to make it all longer.
yeah, the day longer or something. Yeah.
Or to make the other class periods shorter.
I get there's got to be a pinch point somewhere, and that seems like that. And maybe 16, they can get something covered.
And that's one thing that, again, we're trying to work with our instructional coaches is, how do we account for the fact that Wednesday and Thursday might have 37 minutes difference between a class that you teach both days, a class that's on an even day versus the same
Right.
class, different section on the odd day. I mean, that's elephant in the room. That's a reality. We've got to find a way to maximize, so that doesn't just become an extra 37 minutes that's lost instruction. Right?
Yes.
The 16 minutes during, the lunch, if you've got that second or fourth lunch, we've got to figure out what's the best way to maximize that time, so it doesn't just become study on your own time or finish your homework time. So again, those are all focus areas that we have.
The 16 and 64, those are the same class, just with the lunch.
Split.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All, and that's the thing about lunch too, is all of our lunch periods will be the exact same class. Where
Except for the black
previously,
and gold.
pre-COVID, except for the black and gold, correct. But pre-COVID, you might have had your fifth period class lunch and then sixth period.
Right.
Or you might have had fifth period that got interrupted with lunch, so it was split, and then a consistent sixth. So there was just lots of variables previously. We feel like this is more consistent. More kids are running the similar type schedule.
I don't know, come in, sit down, check up on what happened 2 days before for your first 16 minutes, go have lunch, start your new day's
You
work
get in it. Yeah.
with the last 64.
And some of it is action research.
Yeah.
Some of it is you learn as you're doing what are people having success doing? How can we use our instructional coaches and model teachers to disseminate those successful strategies to other areas? What
Right.
works in English might not work in science, but it might. So communication is going to help us as we continue to get better throughout the year.
Steve, I'm kind of like Rick. I was a hardcore traditionalist, 8 periods, right? I'm old, so I did all that. And this year, I'd say was a pretty big struggle. I think the biggest thing with this is like our PD, like getting our teachers ready. Because you've got a building full of teachers that are 8-period teachers, right? So, and I can't say this year prepared them or, so I think with the senior and the freshman, I don't know, we had some classes that were fantastic. My kids said, hey, this is way better. I'm learning a lot more. And then we had ones where, hey, we're 35 minutes of instruction and then we're on our phones and for the rest of the time. So it's like that balance of trying to get everybody on the same page. And like you said, figuring out which subjects are, because we can't throw 2 lessons together and just say, I'm going to put 2 of my days together and we're going to teach that today. I mean, that's all kind of out the door. So I guess what are we doing as far as PD and giving our teachers the tools for success in this? I mean, you know what I mean? Because I'm like you, I think they need a lot of time to collaborate as far as each department and say, hey, how are we going to attack our curriculum for science? How are we going to attack it for math? How are we going to, because that makes a huge difference. And it did.
The nice thing about, our instructional model here at Southeast Polk, it's a gradual release of responsibility, is it lends itself to any configuration of minutes. Teachers are going to have some version of direct instruction in every classroom in America, right? Guided practice, is something that needs to happen all the time. It's not just I teach the kids how to do it and then you go work on your own. There's got to be that working together component. Students need to have opportunities to collaborate together without the teacher. We call that productive group work. So that needs to be there too. And then there's obviously the opportunity to get individual support and work on your own. So the thing about block scheduling is how do you kind of navigate that gradual release waters? Every day might not be the same. It's not like you devote the first this many minutes to direct instruction and then you always go into guided practice. But really, what are those successful ways you can navigate that? Depending on English might look different than science. When it comes to professional development, June 3rd, one of the things we're doing in the building is to start having that conversation about effective instruction in the block. What does transitioning look like? How do you, again, maximize your instructional effectiveness on a longer period of time? And then we're going to continue to develop that and it'll be a focus all next year.
That's what I see as like the toughest part. And I'm like you, I mean, every day is different. That's actually, and that's a positive as far as for the kids. I mean, you can have a day where I might talk for 35 minutes today and you might have an interactive day that's almost the whole day. I mean, it's exciting. You're kind of selling me on the whole idea as far as when I look at, possibilities as far as what each day can look like and how education can look different every day. But that is like experience and the flow. And I mean, that's what I'm worried about is just like year one.
Right.
As far as, we're trying to, I don't know if you'd say make up ground, but you know what I mean? I just think the teachers need to, what can we do for them to make them feel comfortable walking into that saying, okay, I have a game plan, and that'll change throughout the year, like you said, as they get comfortable, but.
And it's changed a lot this year too. I would say that our teachers in August, September, they were really trying to figure some things out. And I think they've developed a lot of successful strategies in block scheduling throughout this year that we'll use to develop our professional development years forward. I can tell you, Tom, I've always been an 8th period person too. That's how I grew up. That's how I taught for the most part. That's what I knew. The forced change of COVID caused me to experience something different. And I see a lot of benefits. And that's why we're going to continue to move in this direction, because I do think it provides us with the characteristics of that schedule, the same number of minutes, additional support time, some academic incentives, flexibility, but also mindful of the fact that we're not always right the first time.
So, and then you said the whole building's following the same, and like Harbor and all this, we're doing the same kind of.
The Harbor operates on a different schedule. The Harbor will not follow this schedule. Their schedule is different. They have a later start time already, but they've got kind of expeditionary learning in the afternoons, and they're on a unique schedule that they will continue with.
Okay. And then are we closing campus for that group as well, as far as lunches and stuff too?
That's something we haven't discussed yet.
Okay. No, what was my other one? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought on one other question. Oh, safety and security. There we go. So, and I guess how this plays into that as far as, I think it might be maybe a little bit easier since we'll have like at least 3 waves in the morning, right? Of kids coming in, we'll have like the early birds and then we'll have the ones that come
Yeah,
in.
very small wave with the early bird, very small, like 2 sections of PE. But yeah, the majority of our kids, I'm estimating that we'll probably have 1,300 kids, probably 1,400 that would be required to be an MTSS. Approximately all of our freshmen and half of our sophomores through seniors. Then we'll have another probably 800 kids that will come in during that second wave. As you all know, we have kids coming and going all day long because we have kids that go to Central Campus, that go to DMAC, that go to Drake. that start a little bit later, that end a little bit earlier. So there's always kind of a coming and going out of the school. But with closing the campus during lunch, that will be significantly less. Usually it's going to be, I leave and I don't come back. I come in the morning, just maybe a little bit later than what others might, but once I'm here for the duration of the day. So we believe that the closing of the campus will definitely increase, safety, security.
And then you anticipate like many juniors or seniors being done like before lunch, or, you know what I mean? As far as like scheduling and stuff, do you think you're going to lose?
Right. So this year, our sixth period or fifth period, depending on if it was an odd or an even day, finished at noon. And that's when we started our MTSS lunchtime. A lot of our juniors and seniors would have a seventh and or an eighth period study hall release. So a lot of our kids might have ended the day at noon. With the new schedule, the fifth and sixth period, which contains lunch, doesn't get over till 1:30. So there'll be very few kids that would be finished before 1:30. Depending on if they've got a 7th or 8th hour study hall, they could be off, finished with the day at 1:30 on one of those 2 days, if not both, depending if they have 2 study hall releases or not. But yeah, we will have kids in school longer. They'll be there through 1:30.
Awesome.
Mr. Pettit, I'm sure you and your staff have thought about this. I just want to hear the solution. When you have kids in an MTSS for a subject they need help in, which is great, you said during your presentation that, that they're in that class because they need help in that subject, and a teacher from another subject that has the same kid can request that kid. You anticipate, I have a couple of questions and then you can answer them, but what if the teachers don't cooperate? They both want the kid, they both think the kid needs their help. Being a former teacher, that happens sometimes. And then on the other hand, maybe the kid wants to help in another class instead of the one they're currently in. Most kids, if you release them, they're going to go where they're supposed to. But we all know that you have a few that say, hey, I want to go to Mr. Krell's room. They never get to Mr. Krell's room. I don't know if you understand. You don't have time
Absolutely.
to email each other.
Yeah, so we'll have a check it. Our reservation system will be
Yeah.
transparent
Right.
so that, I'll call it the rostered MTSS teacher where the student is scheduled normally
Yeah.
would know that the student's not going to be here today because it's on our transparent reservation system. That student's going to go see Mr. Krell. Mr. Krell would know that that student's coming to see them. And then obviously we'd have to have communication procedures that when that doesn't transpire.
So you're saying it's all worked out ahead of time?
That's the plan, is to
Yeah.
have as much of it worked out ahead of time. Now, of course, if you're in the middle of MTSS and I'm with my science teacher and I'm working on my math that day and I've got a question in math, you could always ask, hey, can I go see my math teacher? We can pick up the phone and we can do some calls like that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, our desire is to develop a system. So not only that the student knows where they're supposed to go, when they're supposed to go based off the reservation system, both sides of that teaching relationship would know. And also we're trying to develop a way that we can have a system sent information to parents. Because if we have students that aren't scheduled into an MTSS period, but a teacher's requested for them to come in because they need some help in a certain class, I think it'd be nice if I was a parent and I knew that my teacher wanted my son to come in and get
Right.
math help. So those are all types of things we're trying to increase the transparency. So students, parents, and both sides of that teaching relationship know if a student's not going to go where they were originally scheduled.
Is the class size in MTS, does it vary? I mean,
Right now, we're trying to set the capacity at 15 of kids scheduled into those classes. Most of our rooms can house 30. So that kind of gives 15 extra places for somebody to check in. Again, in theory, some of those kids that might be scheduled into that room might check out and go somewhere else. But yeah, we will have a capacity. We're not going to have 75 kids go get help from their math teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be counterproductive, right?
Thank you.
Or just to jump on that MTSS train here. MTSS, there's multiple tiers, right? So are there some of these students will have more like individualized help as well versus the 15-person classroom?
Yeah, so when it comes to kind of explain MTSS, tier 1 interventions really happen during the traditional classroom. So during your odd period classes, you're with your teacher, you develop interventions. For a lot of kids, it might be whole class, there might be some, but tier one interventions, your initial interventions
Mhm.
are done during your class period, which is another reason why it's nicer to have longer class periods, because you can kind of implement those interventions during that period. The MTSS within our schedule is really our tier two support system. So we'll naturally have kids scheduled into those, but those interventions will be more specific. If kids need additional supports outside of that, the tier three usually is outside of school supports. So that would be our after school program.
Okay.
So again, the different levels of intervention would kind of either be within the regular class period, tier one, in the morning before school during that MTSS period. That's really your tier two targeted interventions. And then your really intensive things would be outside of the school day.
Okay. That's the question I was asking. I just didn't use all the right words. So, yeah. Thank you.
I think it's one more too. What about, because when you say this free flowing and all that, I think enrichment too, as far as like, that gives us plenty of time for, I mean, to kind of give those enrichment activities too for the kids that need it. So we're kind of doing our MTSS here, and then we've got, I don't know, I'm just thinking about all the stuff that we need as far as like PD and, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So. as far
Yeah, I
as-
think enrichment would be the next challenge. You know, I think a lot of our classes, you know, we have different types of classes. So some of our classes might be a more enriched experience maybe.
Mhm.
Which means, you know, kids that are in AP classes need support too,
Mhm.
right? So, you know, there's all sorts of levels of need for MTSS. You know, right now we haven't dedicated time in our day or staff to really do truly outside of the classroom enrichment. I know the junior high has their flex period where they have a portion of their staff that really works on intervention, and a different portion is doing more of kind of enrichment based during their flex. Right now, that's not really our plan. Because again, our kids get a lot of enrichment within the electives that they get to choose during the school day.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking just even built into the 90-minute class periods. I mean,
Oh,
as far as like when they have
absolutely.
their.
Absolutely, yeah,
work out on their
extensions
own
for
and-
sure, yeah. You have your, you know, your regular curriculum, you know, teaching to the standard, those types of things, and then you have those extension activities on top of.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Those would be naturally within our tier one, because again, MTSS isn't just remedial, it is extending too.
Our teachers. Whew.
Yeah,
It's just, yeah, it's just a lot.
it is a
It's
lot.
So.
It is a lot, and that's where support comes in. I mean, that's why we're so fortunate to have, you know, our teacher leadership system, you know, where we have 6 full-time instructional coaches that can support. We have 26 model teachers that can model successes strategies. So again, I think our system is really set up to really face the challenges, you know, with trying to continue to be leaders in education. So I mean, I'm excited for this. You know, I think it's change, but I think it's the right change. And hopefully it will, you know, continue to provide great benefits, you know, for our staff when it comes to just a challenging environment, but really the rewards for our students.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. Can't believe I'm saying
That was my goal right there.
I am excited. It's just, I just hope we can find ways to kind of build in time for our teachers to collaborate and stuff. Because I think of any year,
Right.
This will be like, I don't know, one of the most important ones at the high school anyway.
Yeah,
to-
for sure.
To really
A lot of
dig in.
moving.
Well, to address that, Tom, you know, I appreciate, you know, the calendar committee, you know, with the providing weekly late starts, you know, that provides staff with more time to do that. You know, my style in the building is to provide, you know, we primarily do PLC time during those late starts, which is really teacher time to collaborate. Obviously, there's professional learning associated with it, but we don't do at the high school a lot of building wide professional learning because everything's just so specialized.
Mhm.
But when it comes to being effective in teaching on the block, that would be something that we will do on a building wide level. Now, of course, within those PLCs, the math teachers might have some unique conversation about what's working there. But again, the 2-hour weekly late starts really it has been a huge benefit. I can remember back when we had one late start a month, however many years back that was. And I don't know how we could be as successful with that type of a structure.
Steve, can you just clarify? So you and I had a conversation a while back on this because it really isn't a difference to me. It's still, to me, it's to be honest, same amount of class time, just how you look at it. But for those and maybe you already said this, but so if I'm one of those kids that squirms around, can't sit around, not paying attention, I guess it can go both ways, or the student that just needs that extra time, they're used to seeing those teachers every day. Is that MTSS, is that time for them to go? Because you're talking about the 15-minute, hey, come see me in the morning type thing, because if you don't see them until the next day, you have that question. And we know how some kids are. Some kids are very responsible, but then some kids will be like, I don't have to see them until the next time, but that puts them behind. So with that,
Yeah, so we've built in some classes will have either kind of an on top of support class. I kind of gave the English example earlier. Our kids are in our 9th grade English 1 class. We have a class called Classroom Connected Literacy Strategies, which would meet on the opposite day. So that's where they'll get their daily interaction there. But yeah, every student would also have the ability during MTSS time to go see that teacher that I don't see today. So if I have a first hour math class and I want to see my teacher every day, well, then maybe on the even days, I would schedule to go into my MTSS period to get that extra support.
okay. Well, you answered all my other questions. I like the PE study hall change, because I think 80 minutes sitting in study hall, you get your assignment done and then you're twiddling your thumbs and you end up thinking of things, what I can do to cause trouble, or may not be trouble, but it just, but so, no, I'm good with it. Any other questions for Steve, or?
I can't imagine how many hours it took to go through all that, put that together. Good grief. Thank you.
At least a couple, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
All right, well, appreciate it, Steve.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll see how that works. Classroom technology upgrade, Mr. Kurth.
Good evening, board. Jason Kurth and I are here tonight to share with you a little bit about the technology upgrades and what type of professional learning we are planning to help teachers learn how to use these tools in the best way. So I'll turn it over to Jason with the techie stuff.
Okay, as Dr. Latham said, we're going to focus tonight more on the professional development plan that we have with our purchase. So to kind of give you an overview, just to quickly review the equipment, we have a Clever Touch going into every classroom, a Chrome box that's mounted to that Clever Touch, an adjustable AV cart, small document camera, new teacher Chromebook, and 21-inch monitor to connect into the Chromebook for dual monitors, and an audio enhancement solution in most classrooms, but not all classrooms. So we're getting to the point where we're really getting excited because we've gotten some of the stuff shipped in. Getting a little nervous though. If you remember the ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal.
We got stuff on that.
Three of those containers included Clever Touch devices that were intended. So they've rerouted some shipments, and they've got 3 containers. So it's like 3 semi-truck trailers that'll be coming at the end of May. And then we have 30 pallets with audio enhancement, and with our Chromebook upgrade, we've got another 30 pallets of Chromebooks coming. So we're going to have a lot of equipment shipped in over the next 30 to 60 days. So it's an exciting time, but a little nervous just because trying to manage all the, the logistics of it all will be a challenge, but I look forward to it. So with our classroom AV project, if we want to look at the training plan, we're partnering with Tierney Brothers, and Tierney Brothers has a really outstanding reputation for their training programs that they offer to K-12 schools. Most of their, if not all of their trainers are former educators. So they've stolen teachers out of the classroom and have hired them as trainers. And I know that Jamie Gilchrist, our instructional technology coordinator, is very impressed with their team. And I have been impressed as well, just with our interactions with them leading up to this.
So we have broken down the training plan into some different modules. The first module is the Clever Touch Getting Started. That's a 3-hour session that most every teacher will attend if they have a Clever Touch in their classroom. And the way that we've broken teachers into groups is we've, on a spreadsheet, we've basically assigned teachers to training groups, and they'll stay in that training group consistently through the 4 or 5 months that we have this training. So the Clever Touch Getting Started will be a phase, and then the next 3 phases will go through September through February. And so a teacher will kind of stay in the same group and will have the same trainer throughout. So they'll build a relationship with that trainer. And I think by the end, I think we'll be to a really, really good point in the classroom. So that first session will be done remotely. In fact, all sessions are done remotely through Zoom, which is an advantage in this situation because teachers will be able to be in front of their Clever Touch panel during the session. So the instructor is going to give them time to get up, do whatever it is needs to be done, try it out. And so rather than sitting in a lab and watching a Tierney Brothers trainer show them something, and then they go back to their classroom 3 hours later, and then they're busy with the, I think this is a much better approach. The second module we have is Clever Touch Beyond the Basics. It's going to focus on Snowflake. The third one focuses on links. Those are 2 pieces of software that integrate with the Clever Touch panel, and they just kind of add to the interactivity, the capabilities of using the board interactively. The fourth session is really kind of just beyond the basics. It's a general 90-minute session, touch upon some more advanced topics, but also the trainers will have surveyed their group to try to determine what questions these staff members have remaining, what content they want covered, what features and functionalities they would like to spend a little bit more time on. And then they'll kind of focus that last session kind of tailored to their specific group they've been assigned. And one that's not on the training plan is we have a subscription with Tierney Brothers. So we have access to their online resources. In addition, every teacher can schedule up to 4 private set 20 to 30-minute sessions with a Tierney Brothers support specialist, training specialist. So 4 times a year. So if they're struggling with a certain functionality of the Clever Touch or the Snowflake app or the links, they can schedule at their convenience up to a 30-minute session with a specialist. And they can do that 4 times throughout the year. And that's an offer to all 450 plus teachers in our district that will have the Clever Touch. So I think Dr. Latham is going to go into a little bit more detail potentially on the structure.
Yes, and as Mr. Pettit had mentioned, we do have ongoing professional development at Southeast Polk. And so it won't just be a one and done as we take a look at it. So in the getting started phase, the one that's a little bit longer, this will be both before school and pre-service. So as we've mentioned before, we had some pilot teachers test out these materials before the tech team came up with what would be standard in every classroom. And these pilot teachers will get this overview first. So they will come in early August and they will have this training before the teachers arrive for pre-service. And that way they'll be lead teachers and they'll be able to help their peers and their colleagues when we start the training. And so that first overview will be for most all teachers, and we will be scheduling that in during pre-service time. So that first chunk will be during pre-service. Then as we've looked at our Wednesdays across the year, when we start to schedule in the Beyond the Basics or the 90-minute, those are more conducive to our late start or early dismissal times. And so we have scheduled those across the year. Spaced those out so that teachers have a chance to learn some things, try them, perhaps schedule one of those individual sessions as was talked about, and then we'll learn some more so that it isn't put everything at the beginning and forget, some of the things that were talked about. So those will be spaced across the year, and by the end of the school year, all teachers will have had the opportunity to engage in that full suite of training for the classroom tools. And as was mentioned, the format, the hands-on training, to me, not being a tech person, having the ability to do it alongside them and on my computer and actually do it while I'm learning is the best way for me to learn technology. So I think that is just such a wonderful format that they will be able to zoom in, and then teachers will be trying these things as they're teaching them. And so I'm really excited about the format and about the tools. And I know we'll have a number of teacher leaders across the district who will be able to provide additional support as we continue to maximize these tools to support learning. So when we look at the training groups, again, we are looking at them through different lenses and different needs that they might have. So again, the pilot groups, those who piloted these materials will get a little bit of a jump start on the training. And then the plan, the basic overview plan is for elementary teachers and secondary teachers. We're also creating a plan for curriculum leaders. We won't be using it every day, but need to have a certain level of knowledge of it so that when we're out in schools, we can help teachers be able to use those. And so we can also create ideas for how you might use those tools to strengthen the curriculum. And then administrators as well won't be using it on a daily basis like teachers, but will need to have that overview of knowledge to be able to support their teachers in using the materials and to be able to reflect with them on how they might best match that or what types of additional training they might need. So again, as the tech team fills up more rooms with all these materials, it is really exciting to watch them come in. It's exciting to see what this is going to look like for us moving forward. And we're continuing to commit to the professional learning. It's one thing to get the materials, but we need to know how to use them well. So we're excited about the professional learning opportunities for all teachers.
For members of the community that might ask me about this investment is because of the bond.
Yes.
And, before our whole world was upended, I can remember, seems like it was forever ago, we were doing our little board visits at the school building. We were at some building. I'm like, what is that? Well, that's a clever touch.
Right.
And that's that thing that's like a TV, but it's also a blackboard too, or something. It's just an amazing device.
This is actually one right here.
Okay, I didn't realize that. This is so exciting. This is really cool stuff. And I'm so glad we're able to do this. And people wonder, well, what's all that money used for? I mean, I can remember when we were doing those visits, we were in one, I won't call the person out, but it's like, well, what can the board do to help you? And it's like, well, could we have a whiteboard? And then here's this amazing device. I think the kids will be all about it. And it's fantastic. And it's where the rubber hits the road. It's in the teaching and learning and that's our wheelhouse. It's what we do. So using these devices, this is really cool.
Anything else for?
Yeah,
Mr.
just
Kerr?
a couple of quick questions. Talking about pallets of new devices and what does that do in terms of tech support issue? Like, are we concerned about being able to, with our current tech staff, be able to support all these new devices that are coming on board?
The way I interpreted that is you're saying we need to hire more technical support.
He's hoping you can't.
I'm just saying, so many more devices. You have pallets of new Chromebooks and all these new clever touches, and most of them are going to work fantastic, but there's probably going to be a number of tech support issues.
Yeah, and my team is excited about the changes that are occurring in the classroom. And we're gonna take the challenge head on. We'll learn a lot this first year. And then I think we just evaluate, and if there's a distinct need, I'll work with HR and we'll look at that, and maybe it comes up on one of the staffing plans in a year or two. But I think right now we're fairly well equipped. We are bringing in a few extra temporary employees this summer to kind of help us out. So I think we'll be okay.
I imagine we get a certain amount of support through the manufacturer or software
Yeah.
folks as well.
Yeah, they're providing quite a bit of support early on.
Okay. And you mentioned the Suez Canal. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do we have any other supply chain concerns at this point, or do we think we'll get it all in and set up?
At the moment, it's all scheduled to come in relatively on time.
Okay.
So we're lucky.
Okay. And then a question for you, Dr. Latham. When we hire new teachers in the future, will they go through that same series of trainings?
Yes, as we look at these, what I would call, when Mr. Pettit talked about, these are the types of trainings that everyone gets. We then tend to build those into our new teacher workshops so that when new teachers come in, they'll have that opportunity to have that same type of training. Now, it might not be Tierney Brothers, but by then our goal is to build enough capacity with our teacher leaders, but then we will embed that right within our new teacher orientation and pre-service so that all new teachers will have that same level of understanding.
Okay, and we'll have kind of at that point, we'll have this more of an internal competency around using the devices.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, as a technology guy myself, I'm very excited that we're going to get to this next level, and it's across the board. That's very exciting. Thank you.
Hearing no other questions, or thank you very much. All right, moving on to food and nutrition, Mrs. A here.
Good evening, and thanks for having me. I'm going to attempt, as we're talking about tech, share my own screen so that you can see. So give me 1 second. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint right now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I am just here tonight just to share a few updates with you all, just to highlight some of the things that happened this year. The first slide that I have, there we go, is just kind of an overview of this year. We have served students in a variety of different ways. It's been one of those years where it's been a little nutty, but we have gotten food to kids every way possible. So you can kind of look at the numbers of what we did. We served over 4,500 meals when we were remote. Or that's what we do right now for those that are remote. We serve those on Wednesdays out of our high school, and people drive up and pick those up. And actually, we've gotten to know some of these people really well and some of the kids, and it's kind of fun. I'm usually there every Wednesday as well, helping. When we were in hybrid, we actually got some volunteers to help us pass out those meals in the afternoon so that the kids who went home the next day would have food. And we had 26 of those. When we had that full 2 weeks where we were 100% remote, we served over 55,000 meals. And then this is just a snapshot of what we've served through April 23rd for breakfast and lunch. I can tell you based on, well, it's hard to compare really anything, but if we go back to 2018, 2019, and compare through that same time period, our breakfasts are up significantly, but our lunches are down some. And we've seen a boom in breakfast. The free breakfast has definitely helped. Free breakfast and lunch has helped that. And also, I do think the breakfast in the classroom has definitely helped some of that as well. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot of what's happening or what has been. These are pictures when we were remote, and we have phenomenal staff in our department and in our district all together. But these ladies banded together. They did a great job of packing meals and just making sure that we had everyone taken care of. And it was around Christmas time, so they had a little fun with it too. But we have some great people who have been able to switch on a dime and make sure that we're taking care of kids. So not only has this year brought, a variety of ways of serving kids, we still have found ways to have fun and do stuff for the kids. These are pictures of National School Lunch Week as well as National School Breakfast Week. So just fun things that we did. We don't have the kids in our cafeterias at the elementary, but we still tried to do some things to make it fun. And so watching social media, you might have seen some of that too. And actually this week, with it being Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week, and actually tomorrow is school lunch hero day. We've been posting out some stuff showcasing all of our different teams and our school lunch heroes as well. So moving on, this summer, we have the opportunity to continue to serve meals to our students. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to do it in a few different ways. And the first one is the grab and go meals. So this is what we have done already. It's exactly what we did last spring into summer. We'll be serving only out of 2 schools though. From serving out of a variety of different places, Altoona seems to be our biggest draw for Altoona Elementary for that area. And then we'll be serving out of the junior high as well. That location worked really good when we were remote. So we'll be handing out, distributing meals on Mondays and Thursdays from 11:30 to 12:30. And we will start that the week after school and go until August 12th. And so we won't be going right up to school, but we will end up sending more meals home at that last time to hopefully bridge that gap as well. And then we also are going to be serving meals to the summer, to the RAM camps, to the summer schools. So we will be at the elementary buildings when we have that program and be offering meals, breakfast and lunch to the students, as well as sending home weekend meals. And then we will also be offering breakfast and lunch when they have summer school at the junior high. And I did forget, with the grab and go meals on Thursdays, we'll be sending home enough food to cover weekends as well. So we will basically be covering every day. And so it'll be a variety of food, and hopefully we'll be able to get some. Talking about supply chain, we definitely are having some of those issues food wise, but we will make sure that we have stuff and it'll get figured out. It always does somehow. So last, well, not quite last, I have a few things after this, but next year, the USDA sent out some waivers. And so we should be having free meals again. So free breakfast and free lunch. Right now, I don't know all the specifics to it because the DE is in the process of electing to participate in those waivers. So we should be knowing more soon. From what has been communicated, there will be some changes with the meal pattern likely, and some with just what program we're under. So what we've been under is a summer food service program, and now we'll be moving from what it seems like to the seamless summer option. They sound similar, but yet there's still differences. But in the end, we should be able to offer every student free breakfast and free lunch, which is amazing. So super excited for that, and to continue to be able to offer that to our students and our families. Just a few other things that I don't have on a slide, but just to kind of give you some information about, is that we did receive, so I wrote for some equipment grants through the USDA, and we received one of the 2 that I wrote for. They were based on eligibility at our schools as well. So we'll be receiving about a little over $39,000 to replace some equipment at Altoona Elementary. Also coming up at the next board meeting, you will be seeing some of our normal yearly bids come through. So just an FYI on that. Most of them will be renewals. The prime vendor, produce, dairy, bread, and equipment repair will all be renewals, but I'll be getting that stuff information to you too, so you'll be able to see that. And then you'll also be seeing some equipment come through. We are in need of some new equipment at the high school. Some stuff that has just decided that it has gone through its lifespan. And so there will be some bids coming through for some new combi ovens to replace some old ones and some steamers that we need replaced. But otherwise, that is what I have for you. I can definitely take any of your questions now. But it's been, with everything that's gone on, it's still been a great year, and we have awesome people who have stepped up and have just did what we needed to make sure we fed kids.
I just have a question.
Sure.
On our debt, obviously we have, now we can donate. I'm assuming we have limited debt, or are we still trying to cover some?
No, I don't know the exact numbers at the current moment, but I know that we cleared off basically most of it last year. So from stuff that was donated, which was helpful from that side of things. And so I don't know the current moments since we have been free for most of the school year. We haven't accrued much, if anything, but I can pull that up and send that to you and get that to either Kevin to send out to you so that you have that information. But I know the last time I looked a few months ago, it was really low.
Okay,
But
yeah.
we're not-
Unless the other board members want to see it, I just think that's great that we have the community stepping up and helping, because I think this is the first time in a long time that we really haven't had a debt. And I get we're going to have some debt and people aren't going to pay. Just, this has been a tough year. Obviously, we've been through that. So I just want to take the time to thank the community again for doing that. And so hopefully we can continue that even outside the pandemic. And then I've got my money on Bimbo bread.
Me too.
So
we
put that
won't
plug
be
in there.
that one's not going out. We'll be back with management. Oh, that's funny.
Thank you for your staff and you for the flexibility this year. I know you guys pulled off some major miracles all year and it's appreciated.
You are welcome. Everyone has jumped in and helped. It's definitely been a group effort.
You ever want to work, go to an elementary lunch line. Good grief, those people work hard. It's like, man, these people are killing me. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. Anything else from Mrs. Ahern?
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Mr. Bacon's excited.
President Handy, it is Beanbo bread.
Well, that's not how I learned it in school. I is. Yeah.
I wanted to spend just a couple minutes here and give you a brief update about the land purchases we've made. This is the Pinkerton property, which would house our middle school site. The Neeson Trust property, which is about a quarter mile just north of the high school now. And then the Temple Holdings property, which is just southeast of Clay Elementary School. The Pinkerton property is now closed. We own that property. That closed on Friday, so that's great news. That propels us to move forward with our schematic designs for the building and to keep on rolling with that particular project. The Neeson Trust, 77 acres, that has gone through phase 1 testing. That's environmental testing. There was some debris that we picked up and had them removed from the property. That is set to be closed here shortly as well. We had a 90-day due diligence on that. When we signed that purchase agreement, that was the beginning of March. So we have a little bit of time still for that particular property to close. The Temple Holdings property, that has gone phase 1 testing as well, which is environmental testing, I apologize. And that has been all ag land since they've known. So we're okay with that. There might be a little bit of an issue because that particular land piece is landlocked. If you recall, we bought 20 acres kind of in the middle of that big parcel. So we are working, our engineer is working with the city of Altoona to see if we could get that survey done without having to have some sort of easement language or access language within that particular property. Other than that, those properties look good from an environmental standpoint, and we hope to close on Neeson real quick and Temple Holdings soon to follow. Any questions regarding those purchases or the land?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, H, phase 3 staffing plan update.
Good evening, board. First off, I'm going to try to be like Kevin and be brief. Of course, I make that a daily ritual to try to be like Kevin. But
We all do.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Before I kick some things off here, I would like to commend Mr. Pettit for his presentation. It's really incredible when you get 11 principals in one room and the topic of conversation is how best to use time. I love the conversation. I liked all the questions. Again, we don't have enough time for this tonight, but I'd really love to do that 10 times over and listen to all our principals and their approaches to how best to use time. So I'd like to commend him and thank everybody for the thoughtful questions. I thought that was great. Last thing I want to thank you for is the vote that just occurred earlier on phase 3, kind of step 1 of phase 3. We added 2 new coordinators in the curriculum office whose lives are built around literacy. That's going to be great. So we're going to take step 2 of phase 3 tonight, and that is to discuss the addition of a couple folks at Spring Creek in the special ed department. The bottom line is this: for 3 years, we've had special education student enrollment at around mid 60s to high 60s. And this year we jumped to 87. So you can imagine, the need for more folks with the addition of 19 more kids who are served via IEP. And that's really
This is in
the
Spring
long and
Creek,
short.
correct?
Pardon me?
This is just in Spring Creek that we're talking.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think one of the things that happened in this particular case is, we have, in our elementary schools, we have kids who are in 5th grade, and those numbers were strong, healthy numbers in 5th grade. And then you put them all together in one 6th grade building, and the staff isn't quite there in terms of FTE to serve them all. Charlie, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's more kids, and then the kids, it's more than just more kids. It's more kids with more significant needs, more kids with social emotion behavioral needs, and more significant academic needs. So it's responding to the more kids and more kids with more needs, which is the shift that's occurring across our district. More kids receiving special ed services, and then a higher percentage of them with more needs, which requires more teacher time.
Moving forward, if there aren't any immediate questions, obviously we're going to prepare to roll this back on May 20 for a vote. And then we would post these positions on May 21st. And it looks like probably maybe first week of June, second week of June, hire on both of these jobs, just to kind of give you a basic, sort of chronological look at how these things unfold.
This is all at-risk money, right?
No, this is special education.
Special education, yes.
Oh, okay, so this
These
is
two
different
are.
than. Any questions for
Nope.
either one?
I've got a general question. I've got you, Joe, and it relates to this too, I guess. You have any read of what kind of applicant pool we anticipate? I mean, with everything else that's been crazy.
Anytime we start putting our toes into June, hires get more and more difficult.
Right?
It's just because great candidates get jobs fast.
Yes.
And people who've signed contracts and have made the determination that, hey, I'm gonna sink my roots here at my current school, tend to not move around a lot. So it's not going to come from a lack of a recruitment, that's for sure.
Oh, sure.
And we do have a running list of folks, and what that list looks like in terms of who has jobs yet and who does not. I haven't really gone through with the principals yet.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it'll be difficult.
Joe, are you just waiting on our next board meeting for approval on this? Is that
Yes.
What? So obviously, I don't like waiting until the last minute. Is this the reason why we would want maybe a special board meeting, maybe next week, just to get this pushed through? Because
We could post and start the process
okay.
Sure.
We just
And-
approve it at the May 20th.
and then, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Just as long as we can get you a step ahead of the game, I don't think we want to sit on this one. These are a little harder positions to find.
Sure. Absolutely, they are. I tend to not kind of go that route only from, I like to get the permission from the 7 of you. But if you're all kind of nodding at me, that's permission enough to say, let's go.
Yeah. Would anybody have an objection to them starting the process before the approval?
Start fishing.
I mean,
Okay.
I guess that's why we're having this conversation, is if anybody's got some issues, if anybody does, please get a hold of Dr. Lupnick as soon as possible, and then, so we don't,
Bet.
any questions for her? Anything else? All right, hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't think there's anything else unless anybody has something really good. Other than just, I want to clarify, they may be right on the sounding out of the bread company, but it's from Bambino. I did some research on this.
Oh, for crying out loud.
And it's
Really?
it's-
In the last 10 minutes?
I can't tell you the exact date, but it's like 1940 something that they started, and it was because of Bambino.
Oh, yeah,
So
babe.
it kind of fits into a
You
school.
remind me of
you
the
know, you
babe.
got Kids. Anyway,
No, motion. to
enough useless
adjourn.
information from Cliff Clavin, so.
Well,
I
he's
have a
saving
second on
you.
that.
Yeah.
Second.
To adjourn.
Put it to,
You guys are gonna research that now, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're thinking this guy has gone crazy.